Before we start, I need a favor. Let me know in the comments what's been done right or wrong. This also helps me create better content for you all, and now we begin. The weather turned faster than we expected. It was supposed to be a short weekend trip, a remote cabin just outside the park boundary, nestled near a lake we'd never seen in person but had found online through some backcountry forum. No cell signal, no crowds, no problem. But 20 minutes after we passed the last gas station, the clouds slammed shut above us like someone closed a coffin lid. Our GPS blinked out just past mile marker 14. Still no big deal. We had printed directions. Or thought we did. Somewhere between folding and refolding them for the glove box, the ink must have run. The middle section of the map was completely smudged. That's when we saw the sign. Ranger Station, scenic overlook ahead, with an arrow pointing left. We hadn't remembered that on the original route, but we were both hungry and more than a little sick of driving in silence under that low gray ceiling. Plus, a ranger station might have paper map. Hell, maybe even directions. So we turned. The road narrowed to one lane. Asphalt gave way to packed gravel, then faded into hard dirt. The woods grew tighter and darker around the car. A crow flew overhead and screeched. It felt theatrical, like we were being watched. We nearly missed it when the ranger station came into view. It sat just off a small bend in the road, wooden, 2 stories tall, with a crooked radio antenna jutting from the roof. The U.S. Forest Service logo was so faded it looked hand-painted. The windows were all shuttered. But the porch light was on, casting a cone of pale orange over the steps. We parked. "Are you sure this is even open?" Mia asked. I shrugged. "Let's just ask. We'll be in and out." The front door creaked as I opened it. The station was warm, almost too warm, and smelled like wet cedar and something faintly metallic. A fire crackled in the stone hearth along the back wall, even though it wasn't that cold out. Behind the desk sat a ranger. At least, I assumed he was a ranger. The uniform was regulation: forest green shirt, gold name tag, matching pants, but everything about him felt outdated. His face was pale, but not sickly, more like paper or candle wax. His hair was buzzed close to his skull, hat pulled tight over the top. He didn't smile, not at first. He just looked at us and then, without a word, flipped open a dusty black ledger on the counter. That's when I saw it. Our names were already in the book. Mia Langston. Daniel Cole. Right there in looping, old-fashioned script. "You're expected," the ranger said, finally smiling. His teeth were straight, but slightly too many. I stepped back instinctively, but he was already moving. Not fast, but direct. He lifted a key ring from a hook behind the counter and tossed it to me. "Cabin 7. Scenic overlook. Beautiful view. No other guests this weekend." Mia's voice was tight. "We didn't make a reservation." "You did," he replied, folding the ledger closed with both hands. "Just not recently." We stood there, stuck. Something in me screamed to turn around, but the fire in the hearth crackled again and the heat made me drowsy. Almost like we were already halfway into a dream. "There's a gate just ahead," he said, pointing to the path past the station. "Don't worry. I'll lock it behind you, keep you safe." I wanted to ask what it was keeping out, but for some reason I didn't. We left without another word. The door clicked softly shut behind us, and when I looked back through the cracked blinds, the ranger was already staring out. Not moving, just watching. The path led straight from the ranger station. No turns, no forks, just a smooth curve downhill under drooping pine branches that scraped the roof of our car. The gravel thinned until we were driving over packed dirt and moss. "Cabin 7, he'd said. "Scenic overlook." But the deeper we went, the less anything looked maintained. No signage. No trail markers. Just trees growing too close together and shadows that moved when they shouldn't. Then we saw it. The gate. There was no fence. No fence line. No boundary. Just a wide, open clearing with 2 massive, rusted posts, one on either side of the road, and a gate strung between them, made of bent iron rods welded together into jagged shapes. Not a standard forest gate. Not even a safety barrier. This thing looked hand-forged and old, like something you'd see outside a mausoleum. But it was wide open. We slowed down. The dirt road passed between the posts and into a stretch of trees so thick it looked like a tunnel. As soon as the car rolled between them, I felt it. A pressure in the air. Like static in your teeth. Mia rubbed her arms even though it wasn't cold. There was a sound behind us. A low creak. Soft metal grinding. I looked in the mirror. The gate had swung shut. No wind. No latch. No chains. It had just closed on its own. I threw the car into reverse, ready to back up and get the hell out, but the moment the tires touched the track we'd just driven, the whole frame of the car shuddered. The dashboard blinked. The engine sputtered and stalled. "Nope," Mia whispered. "Nope, nope, nope, just go forward." I turned the key. Nothing. I tried again, this time pushing hard on the gas as I turned, desperation bracing my foot. The car started. But the rearview mirror no longer showed the gate. It was just trees now. Solid. Thick. Closed together like they'd grown up in seconds. I stepped out to see if we could walk back, maybe on foot. Maybe there was a trick to the angle. But the moment my boots hit the moss, I realized something else. There were no tire tracks. None. No imprints behind us. No gravel kicked up. Just smooth, undisturbed ground like we'd never come through at all. I opened my mouth to call for Mia and stopped. There was a sound deeper in the woods. Boot. Heavy. Deliberate. Not running. Not stomping. Just steady. Close. I turned to face it but saw nothing. Only trees. Still trees. "Mia," I said, low and even. "We're going." She didn't argue. She never even got out of the car. She just nodded and clicked her seatbelt in like it was armor. I climbed back into the driver's seat and pressed forward. The car moved. But nothing felt right. The road ahead twisted left, then right, then climbed. The tree line curved unnaturally, as if we were circling something without realizing it. And then, just as we began to descend, we saw a wooden sign nailed to a post. Cabin 7, Scenic Overlook. It pointed left. There was no right. We followed the path another quarter-mile until the trees opened slightly. A weathered wooden cabin sat among ferns, front porch sagging, chimney crooked, a swing still creaking slightly as if someone had just left it. The lake was visible beyond the trees, but somehow farther than it should be. Like it was a painting hung just past the tree-line. We got out slowly. The air was thick and buzzing. No birds. No insects. No wind. And no fence. Just that gate behind us, locked shut. By no one. We barely slept that first night. Every floorboard in cabin 7 creaked like it was crying under invisible weight. The fireplace lit, but wouldn't stay lit. The water came out warm, then ice cold, then warm again. I heard something scuttling across the roof around midnight, and at least twice, the swing on the porch screeched to a stop like someone had just stepped off it. But when I opened the door, there was no one there. Just that feeling again, like we were being watched from just beyond the tree line. The next morning, we packed before the sun had fully risen. No coffee, no small talk. Just instinct. We were leaving. The car started this time, but it handled worse than I remembered. The tires stuck like they were moving through syrup, and even as we drove back along what should have been the only path out, things didn't line up. The turnoff for the scenic overlook came again. And again. The same warped sign. Same split tree beside it. The same fallen log near the bend. I swore under my breath and took the other direction. There was no sign pointing that way, but it had to lead somewhere. A road can't just feed itself. But 20 minutes later, we passed the same overlook sign again. Same fallen log. Same broken split in the pine tree. "Stop the car," Mia said suddenly. I hit the brakes. The tires skidded a little on gravel, then bit down hard. She pointed off into the woods. Her voice dropped. "Look. There, between 2 trees, just at the edge of visibility. The ranger. Standing motionless. one hand at his side, the other holding something long and thin, maybe a walking stick, maybe a tool. He wasn't moving, but he was closer than he should have been. At least a mile closer than the station. And his face. It wasn't quite the same. His eyes weren't reflecting light. No sun glint. No moisture. Just dull glass marbles staring out. Drive, Mia said, low and urgent. We looped the bend and pushed faster this time, hugging the turns, skipping potholes. I watched the rear view, waiting to see him fade behind us. But he didn't. We rounded another bend and there he was. Standing at the trail's edge again. Closer. Same position. Same blank face. Same too tight uniform. Same too still shoulders. I'm not stopping, I muttered. Even if he steps in front of us. Mia didn't argue. We hit the bend again. And again. On the fourth pass, he wasn't just at the edge of the woods. He was on the trail. Standing in the middle. His arms weren't at his sides anymore. One hand was raised slightly, palm open. Like he was hailing us down. Or blessing us. I yanked the wheel right and bounced the car through the brush, leaves whipping the windshield. Mia screamed, but I didn't care. We weren't driving past him again. The car fought every branch, every root, every rut, but eventually we came to another path. Not the same trail. Narrower. Rockier. But it led downhill. Which meant it had to lead out. We took it. For nearly 10 minutes we didn't see the ranger. Then, at the next fork, a wooden post appeared. Same warped lettering. Same arrow. Cabin 7, Scenic Overlook. We hadn't turned. We hadn't backtracked. But we were back. Get out, I said. We're not staying in the car. Mia didn't move. Now, I said again. We're walking. Any direction. Just not the road. We stay in the trees. We move fast. We don't look back. We grabbed our bags and ran. I don't know how long we ran. Maybe half an hour. Maybe more. The woods kept shifting, familiar patterns repeating, like we were inside some sick snow globe. And then I saw it again. Just 20 feet ahead. That same gate. Closed. Locked. But still no fence. No wall. No boundary. Just that gate, floating between two trees. And standing beside it, the ranger. Closer now. And smiling. Now for our second story. We weren't even supposed to be in that section of the park. Micah had read something online about an old hiking loop that had been shut down after a fire a few years back. Not for damage, he claimed, just re-evaluation. That was his word. Said the Forest Service used it when they didn't want to admit something weird happened. Dylan and I weren't buying it. But it was our last summer together before college, and honestly, we just wanted one last ghost story hike. Something that felt dangerous enough to brag about, but safe enough to laugh about afterward. We followed the burned map Micah printed from an archive. It traced a loop trail behind a ranger station that had supposedly been decommissioned in 2019. But when we pulled up to the dirt lot at the trailhead, there was a brand new sign. Welcome hikers. Trail reopened, proceed with caution. A cartoon ranger gave a thumbs up beneath it. But the wood. It wasn't fresh. The sign was blackened around the letters. Not just scorched, like the flames had come from within the plank itself. Like the wood was lit from the inside and carved itself open. I thought they just reopened this, I said. Dylan ran a hand across the surface. Doesn't feel new. Micah just grinned. They always say that. Closed trail, under restoration, fire damage. But this? This is the good stuff. Where the weirdos go. I didn't like that word. Weirdos. The forest didn't feel weird. It felt alert. Alive. We started the loop anyway. The path was too narrow for 3 across, so Micah took lead, Dylan stayed behind me. It was maybe 5 minutes in when I noticed something strange. The ash line was backwards. The trees were burned low at the roots, but still green above. Like whatever caught fire had come from underground. Micah stopped suddenly at a clearing just past mile 1. There, he whispered. Told you. A ranger stood at the far edge of the clearing. Pale green uniform. wide hat shadowing his face. Perfectly still. Dylan raised a hand, waved. The ranger didn't wave back. But his head tilted. Not like a nod, like a tick. Too sharp. Too stiff. Maybe he's just checking trail usage, Micah offered. But the moment we stepped into the clearing, the ranger stepped back and disappeared behind a tree. Not walked. Slid. Like a puppet on a wire. Micah followed him without saying anything. We didn't want to go after him, but we also didn't want to split up. Dylan and I locked eyes, then took off behind him. We found the ranger station less than a minute later. And it was not decommissioned. The porch light was on. Fresh tire marks in the gravel. A clipboard sat on a wooden bench, its paper ruffling in the breeze. I picked it up. 3 guests inbound, map bundles ready. Names blank. Arrival time, accurate to the minute. That's when the ranger came out of the trees again, 10 feet from us. Smiling now. Still not blinking. He held out 3 rolled map. Perfectly tied with twine. We didn't move. He stepped closer. Dylan took one, finally. Thanks. The ranger didn't speak. Just held the bundle a second longer than he should have before releasing it. Then he pointed up the trail. A sign swung gently beside the station. Fire zone, stay on path. Micah whispered, told you. Reevaluation. This place is weird as hell. We should have left. We should have burned the map before we even unrolled it. But we didn't. And the trail kept going. The ranger didn't follow us once we passed the sign. We kept checking behind us, but he just stood there at the edge of the trees, motionless, arms slack at his sides, that pale green uniform clean as a pressed napkin. No name badge. No patches. Just a ranger hat pulled so low you couldn't see the eyes beneath it. Micah unrolled the map. It was blank on the back. No trail markers on the front. Just rough pencil outlines of the terrain, a few sharp-edged turns, and a circled X labeled Pocket 4. I think we're here, he said, pointing at a curve in the trail. Why would this be labeled like a mining site? I asked. Dylan looked around. There's no elevation change. No rock face. Just trees. That's when Micah noticed the bundle of flashlights tucked into the back of the map. 3 of them, tightly wound together with a note in that same jagged pencil scrawl. You'll need these for the pockets. Micah clicked his on. It was dim. More of a UV flicker than a light beam. Defective, he muttered. Dylan clicked his. Then I clicked mine. Same thing. No beam. Just a low, violet shimmer that didn't reach more than a few inches past the lens. These aren't for walking, Dylan said quietly. We didn't know what he meant until we hit the gorge. It was narrow, barely a trail, really. Just a slot between steep ridges with tall rock on one side and dense undergrowth on the other. Sunlight barely reached the ground. The air changed as soon as we entered. Heavy. Like we were walking into a room that had been sealed for decades. I felt pressure behind my eyes. Not a headache. More like something waiting. Micah was ahead when he froze. Do you hear that? He asked. I listened. Not footsteps. Not breathing. Just a whispering static. Like a radio between stations, but from the trees. Turn the lights on, he said. We did. And then we saw them. Words. Not carved into trees. Not painted on the rocks. But on us. On our arms. Our necks. Across our shirts. Letters and numbers, glowing faintly in the purple flashlight beams. Is that? Dylan started. Micah read aloud. Loop 3. Entry countdown 4:17. Mine read something different. Pocket 4. Observed. Do not exit early. Dylan's had a name. Not his own. Ranger Kinsey, active zone. What is this? I asked. The numbers started changing. Ticking down. 4:17. 4:16. 4:15. We have to go, I said. Now. But the trail forked ahead 3 directions. None of which were on the map. Micah picked one at random and started down it. Dylan followed. I hesitated. My flashlight passed over Micah's back. Another phrase lit up just above his shoulder blades. Returning guest. I stopped breathing. Micah! I shouted. Have you been here before? He didn't turn around. Micah! But the countdown kept ticking. 3:59. 3:58. And behind me, footstep. The kind you feel in the soles of your feet more than you hear. I swung the light behind me. Nothing. But just as I turned back, the trail changed. The rocks had shifted. The gorge narrowed. And Dylan was gone. Just Micah up ahead, moving faster now. Almost too fast. Like he wasn't following the trail anymore. Just the loop. We didn't catch up to Micah again. The trail twisted like a broken ribbon, folding in on itself, doubling back, then leading us forward into places we hadn't passed before but somehow recognized. Every turn had a pattern. Burnt trees on one side, untouched forest on the other. Each loop felt shallower than the last, like the forest was drawing tighter around us. I didn't realize I'd stopped hearing birds until a breeze passed and the silence cracked in my ears. Dylan reappeared half a mile later, just standing in the middle of the trail, pale, soaked in sweat. His flashlight was still on, but the beam barely flickered anymore. "I didn't take a turn," he whispered, not looking at me. "I was still behind you. You were gone. I wasn't." We didn't argue. We just kept walking. At some point the trees thinned, revealing a clearing dotted with flat rocks and blackened tree stump. A small hill rose at the far end with a single log stretched across it like a bench. 3 tents sat in the middle of the clearing, identical to the gear we'd packed. Same colors. Same rainflies. Same dirt smudge on the bottom corner of mine from last week's trip in the Sierra. Only, ours were still in our packs. Dylan stepped toward them, but I held him back. "Listen," I said. There was a sound, not the static from before. A low hiss, like something had just been pulled from a fire. Smoke drifted from the center of the tent. A fire pit, still burning. The coals were red-hot. Ember threads floated lazily in the air. "Someone's here," Dylan whispered. "Or was," I answered. "Just now." Micah's voice came from the side. "Took you long enough." We spun around. He stood at the edge of the clearing, arms slack at his sides. But something was wrong. His head twitched slightly as he turned, like his spine wasn't made for the motion. His shirt clung too tightly across his shoulders, like the fabric didn't know what size he really was. And his flashlight was gone. I took a step back. "Micah, don't be weird," he said. "We're set up. Sit. Rest." He gestured toward the fire. We didn't move. That's when Dylan noticed the logbook. It was half buried under one of the tent flaps. He grabbed it without stepping fully inside and flipped it open. His face changed. "Page 1, he said. "Look." There was a list, messy cursive in thick graphite. Ranger Kinsey, Observer Shifta, Pocket 1 to 231, Pocket 2 to 308, Pocket 3 to 249, Pocket 4 to 417. Underneath, returning subjects 1, new subjects 2, exit granted, no. Dylan flipped to the back. Our names, scrawled in a different hand. Micah Hawthorne, return. Dylan Hart, assigned. Rebecca Lane, assigned. The next line had no writing, just a square box. And next to it, retrieved, ballot box with check. "That wasn't here before," I whispered. Micah took another step forward, and something about his smile fractured. Not his lips, his whole face, like a photo folded down the middle and taped back together. Dylan dropped the book. I grabbed his arm. We ran. I didn't care where, we weren't sleeping there. The trees closed in as we fled the clearing, branches catching our sleeves. The fire behind us made no sound. But the warmth followed us like breath on our necks. The flashlights flickered again. My skin glowed under the UV, showing a new line I hadn't seen before. Shelter denied. Remain in observation. And Micah? He didn't call out. But something was following. Something with his voice. And now for our third story. I'd done solo backpacking before. Dozens of times. sometimes for the challenge, mostly for the silence. This trail wasn't even supposed to be open yet, but the ranger at the edge of the park gave me a nod when I asked about it. No warning, no paperwork, just a single line. If you see smoke, don't cross it. At the time, I thought he meant controlled burns. It made sense. This part of the forest was being prepped for reopening. I'd even seen a sign posted on a tree a few miles in. Active Fire Management Zone. Proceed at your own risk. But 4 miles in, the trees changed. The canopy thinned, but the light didn't get brighter. Shadows stretched longer than they should have. The wind picked up suddenly, and yet the leaves didn't move. I crested a small ridge and saw it. Smoke. A massive column of it drifting across the trail ahead. It wasn't rising. It hung in a dense wall, rolling and shifting like it had weight. A few tendrils coiled up into the branches, then slipped back down again. I waited for the wind to break it. It didn't. It just pulsed gently like a living thing. I should have turned around. I knew that. But I'd seen this area on old maps. There was supposed to be a cabin up ahead. Historic Ranger Outpost, early 1900s. I told myself maybe they were doing controlled burns around it. So I stepped through. The moment I passed into the smoke, I stopped breathing. Not because it was choking, because everything inside me froze. There was no scent, no sting in my eyes. Just cold. Cold like winter breath, cold like soil that never thaws. And then the sound started. Not fire crackling. Not animals. A hum. Low. Tonal. Like a tuning fork pressed against my chest. The trail beneath me was still dirt, but the color had changed. Blackened. Shapes cut into it with no tool I knew. Some like concentric rings. Others like tally marks. I turned to go back. The smoke wall was gone. Behind me, only trees. And then a voice spoke from the left, calm as a bedtime story. You crossed it anyway. I spun. The ranger stood 10 feet from me, arms behind his back. Not the one from earlier. This one wore an older uniform, grayish-green, with brass buttons and a long, dark coat. His face was too clean. Like it had been printed instead of aged. He didn't blink. Didn't smile. Didn't move closer. He just watched me the way someone watches a candle burn. What is this place? I asked. He tilted his head. The old lines burned down. So we drew new ones. I took a step back. Don't bother, he said. Smoke's not a boundary. It's a signal. You've been seen now. He walked past me, not toward the trail, but into the trees. His coat didn't rustle. His boots didn't leave print. I waited until I couldn't hear the hum anymore. Then I checked my pack. Still intact. Still zipped. But when I pulled out the water bottle, there was a piece of paper stuck to the side. Soaked. Wrinkled. I unfolded it slowly. There were 5 names on it. 4 were crossed out. The 5th one? Mine. Not crossed out yet, but circled. And beneath it, a single line. Burn slow. I didn't make camp. Didn't take off my boots. Didn't eat. Just walk. I must have covered 6 miles before the light shifted again, though the sun never moved. It just blinked out somewhere behind the cloud line, like someone threw a switch, and dusk collapsed over everything like wet canvas. The forest dipped, sloped, then dropped into a shallow basin I didn't remember from the map. At the bottom, smoke rose again. Not a column this time. A wide, crawling veil that hugged the ground like fog. It drifted around a clearing circled by split boulders, all of them scorched to coal black. In the middle sat a bonfire. No crackle, no flame. Just glow. Deep orange and red, too low for natural fire. Controlled. Contained. The ranger stood beside it. Same dark coat. Same unmoving posture. His eyes were closed now, but his lips moved. Like he was praying. That's when I saw the pile. Just to the left of the fire. Charred debris stacked in an almost ceremonial heap. Tarps, rope, tent poles, sleeping bags. All blackened but not destroyed. Items partially burned, arranged deliberately. And on top? My backpack. It was mine. Not just similar, exact. The patches, the fraying strap, the carabiner with the chipped paint. I reached instinctively for my shoulder. My pack was still there. Still full. Still zip-tight. I turned back to the pile. Same pack. Same exact pack. How? I muttered. The ranger opened his eyes. Didn't speak. Just stepped back from the fire and nodded toward the pile. I didn't move. He tilted his head, an invitation. Or a warning. Then he turned toward a tree and pulled something from behind it. A book. Leather-bound. Red thread stitching. He flipped it open and read aloud. 5th pass. Solo entrant. Name confirmed. Observation complete. He drew a line across the page. Then pointed again at the fire. I took a slow step forward, heart hammering. My legs moved without thinking, drawn toward the heat, the glow, the quiet rhythm of it. And then I saw the next item in the pile. A boot. Still laced. The same brand I wore. Same size. Crisp, barely blackened. Inside it, resting carefully in the arch, was a photo. Folded once. I reached out and plucked it free before I could stop myself. It was me. Standing in the ranger station at the park entrance. But I hadn't gone in. I'd just spoken to the ranger through the window. I remembered that. Yet here I was, in the photo, standing behind the desk with the same ranger who stood beside the fire now. His hand was on my shoulder. My face looked dazed. Like I'd been there a long time. Like I'd been smiling too long. I dropped the photo. The ranger's hand rested gently on the pile, palm down. Fingers spread. "Burn it," he whispered. "Or it burns you." I turned to run, but the clearing had changed. There was no slope behind me. No trail. Just more smoke, pulsing softly in the stillness. And the fire, now brighter. The ranger held out the red book again, showing the page. My name had been circled. Now, beneath it, written in that same crooked script. Still undecided. I turned back to the pile. My backpack was gone. The fire burned higher. I ran anyway. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just bolted into the trees with my heart pounding and my lungs aching like I'd swallowed smoke. The forest blurred. Roots rose to catch my boots, branches clawed at my jacket. I didn't care. I just needed to get out. I needed a trail. A marker. A rock formation. Something real. But the trees weren't in rows anymore. They were a cage. Too straight. Too symmetrical. Perfectly spaced like a painting trying too hard to look natural. No birds. No wind. Only the hum, subtler now like it had crawled into my head and was vibrating in my teeth. I burst through a break in the woods and stumbled onto flat ground, packed dirt, 2 standing pines, and a familiar object between them. A gate. Iron. Rusted. Bent at the top. No fence, no wall, no trail beyond it. Just the gate. Open. And standing beside it, holding the latch, the ranger. He didn't look surprised to see me. He didn't look anything. Just calm. Expectant. Like I was late for something. "You're not ready," he said, fingers tightening on the old lock. "There's no boundary here," I snapped. "This doesn't lead anywhere." He tilted his head again, same as before. "It leads out when you're finished." "What the hell does that mean?" He looked past me. Not behind, through. Something still attached. I followed his eyes, half expecting a shadow, a shape, something crawling. But I only saw trees. Except, they were rearranged again. Too perfectly. Almost forming a hallway. And at the far end, flickering in soft orange light, the fire pit. Still burning. Still glowing. The ranger stepped forward and held something out. My journal. The one I always kept in the side pocket of my pack. Pages crinkled. Damp. I hadn't noticed it missing. He handed it to me. I opened it without thinking. Every page had been filled. Not by me. By someone who knew everything I'd seen. Every loop. Every whisper. Even my thoughts. Fears I hadn't spoken aloud. And at the bottom of the final page. "It's not about remembering. It's about finishing." I looked up. He was already closing the gate. I lunged, but the iron slammed shut without a sound. His fingers clicked the lock. But behind it, there was nothing. Just void. A kind of black too deep to have texture. Like the space behind closed eyes in a dream you can't wake from. "You're not done," he said softly. And he walked away. Not back into the trees. Into the dark behind the gate. Where the world had no edge. And I was alone. Again. Just me. And the forest. And the fire still burning at the edge of my thoughts.